All right, so Matt, take us back before mortgage and real estate, marketing. What were you doing, man?
Yeah, so the honest answer is college and the Great Recession. So I was lucky enough to get a scholarship to Michigan State where I ended up going for journalism. And in my first ever journalism class, like freshman year, the recession had just happened and all the professors were really negative. They were like, hey, why are you all in journalism? None of you are going to make money. We're only teaching because we all just got laid off. And I'm like, college is nerve-wracking as it is, but I was like, oh my God, get me out of here. So my advisor said the only other major I could use my money for was like communications. So I did 3 years of, good classes. Communications are important, a lot of skills. But the last year I was there, they offered a digital marketing course and then 2 more. So then immediately I signed up for grad school and took every single internet marketing, social media. And this is like when Twitter had just come out, right? So like it was all fairly new. Facebook had just, evolved from being, high school and college network only to like other friends. And within like 6 months of taking those courses, I applied for a job in the real estate mortgage industry. And they said, hey, if you could make us rank better online, we could get leads. These leads are worth, 1 to 3%. I did that. And then after a year, I said, hey, we rank really well. We're getting leads. What else? They go, well, there are these people called realtors. And if you could get them leads, they would like us more and they would send us more leads. Go for it. And so then it really just transitioned into real estate marketing, lending marketing. And it's been a fun ride for the last 10 years. And
I love it. So it sounds kind of like
it's been better every day. So that doesn't suck either.
Yeah, there we go. And yeah, ever since the recession, it's bull run, right? So it sounds like you fell into what you're currently doing, and you were lucky enough that you had a knack for it. You were pretty good at it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where one of the things I learned in college that I thought was fascinating was this idea of like job crafting. It's kind of like when you hire someone as like the owner, as a team leader, as a coach, you want someone to do certain tasks to get a job done and to make you money. But that only takes up like 80% of someone's day. So how can you empower your employees to figure out like something they like doing that could also make you, the company, money? And so our company has just done a really great job with that. And they said, hey, we don't really care how you get from A to B. You can craft your job any way you want to in the middle. And I mean, at certain points, my wife constantly reminds me that I don't have a real job. I'm doing happy hours and coffee meetings and great lunches all the time and golf outings. And I mean, you guys know what the business is like. But I mean, my job is to meet people, to get them to like us, and to share marketing ideas. So it's been the best role in the best industry ever.
Well, fantastic. And so one of the reasons we obviously wanted to have you on today was to talk about the just real estate marketing, because similar to you, a lot of people fall into real estate, but they're not falling into real estate because they were marketers previously. They're coming to it from maybe a service-based industry or a sales-based industry, and they don't understand marketing, at least to the level where they need to be able to grow and scale their business. And so I want you to say, like, real high level, you work with a lot of real estate agents and you're helping them drive leads. I mean, what would you say is like some of the biggest challenges that realtors face right now in marketing their services?
Well, I think most realtors don't know how to differentiate themselves from the pack, right? Like probably all salespeople. So in my market, for instance, to share some real numbers, there's 3,300 realtors, and then there's another couple thousand licensed real estate agents. And if you were to ask one why I should use them instead of the guy at the same office that's also a 45-year-old white male, like they would have no idea how to differentiate themselves. They charge the same commission, they have access to the same properties, and that's really the fundamental problem. So, to transition a little bit to like social media, but also general business strategy, I think every realtor, every salesperson out there needs to have like 3 different personas, right? You need to have like 3 different reasons that a customer or a friend could think about you. Like after this call today, guys, like I hope you don't just think of me as the marketer. I hope you remember the fact that I'm the guy who's taken his 4-year-old on 165 flights. Like I'm into traveling with my family. I'm into eating at the best restaurants in the world, and I'm into pickleball. Like, right? Like you don't need to just remember me for marketing because then you're going to forget me because there's marketers everywhere. I want you to remember me for the other fun stuff. And when you're thinking about social media or branding or networking at a cocktail party, there's probably 5 realtors at the cocktail party. What are you going to tell them that makes an impression and that they remember you for. Actually, Inman, the real estate news channel, had an article and they called this term multiplex connections. And it's the idea that someone will remember you. They're more likely to remember you if they can think of you in more than one context, right? So I'm not just the marketer. I'm the marketer that's in mortgages. I'm not the marketer. I'm the marketer that's super into wine. Like whatever you want to do, you got to get people to think about you in multiple ways. And social media, in my opinion, is the best ever way to do that. Because I could tell you that my business literally doubled when I had kids. And the reason is it made me more approachable. Now, 50% of all humans in their 30s like me who have kids, can relate to me based on my kids. And so all of a sudden, people that never engaged with my content before are engaging me. And I don't care if they're engaging me about real estate or marketing. All I want them to do is to send the message, because now all of a sudden we have a conversation back and forth and I'm top of mind, and they are seeing the real estate stuff. They are seeing the marketing stuff. This should work for anyone in any industry, but for realtors who can make a 3% commission, it's a no-brainer.
So Matt, if you were consulting with a real estate agent, say somebody like me who doesn't know a lot about marketing, what questions would you ask me? What prompts would you give me to help me start sort of developing these personas so that I can differentiate myself within my market?
So if you were a brand new agent, first question would be, when you got into the business, where did you expect your business to come from? If I got an answer like, oh, my broker promised to give it to me, I would tell you that you should get out of the industry and run.
Red flag.
But more realistically, I would find out what you were doing in your previous life. Like, right, like if you were in college, for instance, if you're a 22-year-old realtor, what clubs were you into? What classes were you good at? Like, what connections did you have? Because then we're going to start whittling into like, oh, you're super active in your volleyball league, or you're super active in your church. Okay, well, what can we do with those crowds? Like what promotion can we create? Like, how can we reach out to those people? Do you have a directory for either of those? Are you on an email list? How can we transition that into your database? The next question I'm going to ask you is if you've built your database yet, like your spreadsheet, right? Like every real estate broker, your first day should be telling you to make a database, but most people never do it, right? Some people are too busy. Some people just don't get it. If you've already made a database, I'm going to tell you to put more detail in it. Name, phone number, email address, spouse's name, kid's name, how you know them, give them a group, because you can do much better marketing with more detail, right? Like, I'm not going to market to you because you're a realtor. I'm going to market to you because you're a realtor in Arizona, in Scottsdale, who is at a certain office, who is into certain stuff, who I know through my podcast connections, right? Like, it has to be very specific.
I call that segmentation. I talk to agents about that a lot. Take your database and segment it into groups, into a variety of different groups, so that you can create customized messages that are not one to everybody, but that are also not just one-to-one, because there's an obvious limit to how much you can scale that type of business.
Well, and think about it like this, guys. I mean, like, for everyone out there, if you want an example that should drive this home, think about every store you've ever shopped at the mall, right? Like Lululemon. When Lululemon asks for my email address in the store and then starts spamming me, they aren't sending me like specials for women's clothes for like, warm weather, beautiful states like Arizona. They're sending me men's clothes that are in my size, that are in the price range I shop in, that are weather specific for Michigan, right? Like, why is a company that makes like $4 to $10 every time I buy something doing more detailed marketing than a realtor or a lender who could make thousands of dollars? And it's not just about the money. It's just, it makes no sense to me. So segmentation is key.
But Matt, I can hear the objection right now. Like, they're selling a product and I'm selling a service. How do I apply that to a service-based industry?
Yeah.
You ever hear that?
For a service-based industry, I get that all the time. I think, in your segmentation, you have a lot of ways to go. So in real estate, the most obvious one is the area in which your client is located. Whether you're in New York City, which is one city but has a lot of different, boroughs and neighborhoods, or you're in, the Arizona area where you have like Scottsdale, Phoenix, you have all these places. It's important to not market properties 100 miles away to your clients. Like, your clients care about the stuff that you're doing near them. So, if you have clients in like Prescott, Arizona, on a monthly basis, you should be sending them house updates for other homes that recently sold in Prescott, Arizona. But don't send them updates on the homes that sold 100 miles away in Sedona. It doesn't make sense. You will get better results by segmenting based on city. Second example would be, how do you know the person? Like, what is your relationship to that person in your database? Do you know them from like college? Do you know them from a past job? You're going to phrase the email in a different way, and you're going to put different things in there to be more relatable based on that. Like other example, like you could say, hey, any of my, maybe it's like Arizona State. You have all your Arizona State friends and their college friends. So when you do an email to them, you say, hey, by the way, don't want you to forget, we do a waived inspection fee for every Arizona State grad that we do a transaction with. Like, do what's legal in your area, talk to your broker first, but you can create different specials, different incentives, and different calls to action based on how you know someone if you have them groups that way in your database.
Yeah, well, and just something I want to pick up on, Matt, that you mentioned is these details in the database. And what I hear from some agents is, why am I calling this person every quarter, every month? What am I saying every 6 or 8 weeks when I'm calling them? I don't have an excuse to call them anymore. And these personal details, like their spouse and their family and their recreation and their hobbies and their activities and their travel, those give you the talking points, the excuses to pick up the phone and have that conversation without it feeling like a forced sales conversation.
100%.
I was just having a conversation with a team leader who is, up in Canada about this very, very thing. I mean, most of my first appointments when I'm trying to attract big agents into our office have nothing to do with business. It's what dogs do they have, right? Where do they like to shop? What do they like to eat? Because I need fodder for the continuation of the relationship.
Right.
Because we're not going to convert in the first try in our world. We're going to convert in the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, right? Same with so many of our clients in our database, people that we're marketing to. So what are those details that are going to keep the conversation going? I love your point there, Joe.
So Matt, now let's transition this conversation into, for example, social media. So I'm developing my personas. I'm sort of figuring out all of the different avenues I can take. What are some of the just again starting from a high level, then we'll get down into the weeds. What are some of the most important things that agents need to know about marketing their businesses on social media?
Yeah. I think the number one question I get all the time, and there's a million opinions on this. I'll give you mine. People ask, do I need a business page or a personal page? The answer is this: a business page is not going to hurt you. However, your personal page is going to help you 100 times more. You already have people on there that like you, know you, and hopefully trust you, assuming you're a good person. As long as your personal page isn't cluttered up with super offensive stuff like every political thing, every gun thing, every whatever conspiracy theory thing, then you're probably fine. But in general, no matter what you're into, you're attracting people that are like you. So your personal page is the way to go. When you post something on your business page, only a couple people see it unless you pay. And even if you pay, there's so many anti-discrimination laws that affect real estate that you're not getting your message to as big of an audience on business pages. Now, business pages are great if you plan to do paid advertising, and that's a whole nother conversation. Second big basic social media tip would be your job title. It drives me absolutely insane when I see a realtor and in the job description area, it doesn't say exactly what they do. It should say realtor or real estate agent. I can't think of any other example. If you're a realtor, your thing doesn't need to say CEO of XYZ team. That doesn't tell, customers are dumb. Everyone's dumb. You have to assume that they don't know what the CEO of XYZ team means, especially if the word real estate isn't in that team. I could tell you one of our producers at our office, he does $155 million a year in sales. And every once in a while, he's also the owner of our company. He loses deals because people are like, oh, I thought you owned the company. I didn't think you still sold. That's the worst thing ever. You don't want to find out that your neighbor used someone else because they didn't think you wanted their business. It's like marketing 101. You have to pitch yourself in the way that people can understand it.
I think that's one of the easiest things that will stick with me, right? Customers are dumb. Everyone's dumb. Said and understood in the context, obviously. Yes. You've got to be clear. I hate to step us back to this conversation about personas. But
take us back,
But
David.
Can I take us back to personas for 1 second? Because I think it's another area where people have a block around and the reason I'm kind of going back here is because you said this distinction between personal and business pages and how much of my personal do I share. But what you said is so true about when I know that you're the guy who does marketing, but also loves expensive wine or the best best restaurants in the world, right? The best. All right.
Yeah.
Then that, it does something in my brain. And my question is, how do you convince realtors to share those personal things? Like, I don't even know what I'm asking, except for like, I find a lot of realtors fall down on this. Right. And I want to even give them more to latch onto in developing these personas. Do you have anything else to say to us about that?
Yeah, I do. So the number one thing would be, when you're thinking about social media, you have to remember the first word is social. It is not business, right? Like, so like the reason that like Instagram took over from Facebook is because marketers exploited it, right? Realtors in essence are marketing themselves first and houses second. Most people want to find someone knowledgeable, but that they trust and that they can relate to. Because when you can relate to someone, they're not as scared. Real estate's a big deal. You're buying the average price point by us is like 300,000. By you guys, it's probably like 40 million by now. And so people are scared about like working with a salesperson that they know is going to make a commission. But when they realize that they have all these other things in common with you, it's a much safer space to like set up a meeting. Like the last 3 meetings I set up weren't because people specifically wanted to talk marketing and real estate. It's because people saw things on Facebook or on Instagram stories about like my kids, about traveling, about one of my Airbnbs, and they asked me a question about it. And then I took that open-ended question and goaded them into asking me about my work. Because typically anyone in an English-speaking language is going to be like, oh, how are you? How's work going? How are things going? And now I can steer the conversation wherever I want to go to. The main goal of social media for me and for most realtors is really to just get a conversation and to filter a certain number of those conversations into in-person meetings the next week. Like, I love social, I love the internet, but I'd rather be in real life. Like, I hope we can get together for wine or whatever your drink of choice is the next time we're all in the same area. But I can set that up on social media because it's easy and it's based on a persona that may or may not be related to real estate. It's hard to come up with great real estate content, especially if you're a new realtor and you don't have any listings. Yet it's easy to come up with top content to post about because you're a human. You live, you go to a certain restaurant, you go to a certain school, you do things. That stuff's easy. You just have to take a picture of it or ask a question, something like that.
So let's dive into some of the details around the type of content that realtors should consider posting. What are your thoughts on what's most impactful as far as, a blog post, a survey, something educational, something entertaining, something personal? How does an agent sort of take these different buckets and create maybe a social media plan for themselves so that they're touching in these different areas?
Yep. So you hit the nail on the head with the word social media plan, right? So the first thing is you have to look at social media, not like, oh, this is this fun thing that I'm on. It has to be part of your job, right? Like in real estate, we don't have a boss all the time saying, do this from 8 to 9, do this from 9 to 10. So the first thing is to add some structure to your day and say, these are the hours per week, per day that I'm going to be on social. And then you break it down to how many posts you want to hold yourself accountable to. If you want like a general metric, I would probably say like 3 story posts at least every other day, specifically on Instagram. And then maybe 2 or 3 like actual feed posts every week. That would be like a very average place to start. Some people do a lot more. Then I would break it up into say, okay, if I have to do 3 posts and I have 3 different personas, I'm going to do 1 about each. Very easy. Anytime possible, you want to tag someone else. Like if I'm having wine, because that's one of my personas, I want to tag the wine bar that I'm at. I want to tag the guest that's with me, because then I can get in front of their friends too. You want to use a variety of social media like tools, like example, like on Instagram, you don't just want to post like pictures with a caption. You want to post polls and questions and songs and videos and like emojis and all of the many tools that Instagram gives you, because Instagram sees if you're using more of their platform, they're giving you more of their algorithm. They're putting your posts in front of more people. If you do the same thing every time, people start to ignore it, and so does the internet.
Okay, so I want to dive into algorithms just a little bit more because this is a fascinating conversation for me. So far, I've heard that to maximize the algorithm, use the different features on the platform and also to tag people. I'm just assuming tagging people is connected to algorithms as far as how many people are going to see that post. What else do we need to know about algorithms so that we can maximize our results?
Yeah, so the easiest trick for anyone, if you want more people to see your stuff, you have to be in communication with more people on that social media site. So for probably 7 years, this has been true. If you use Facebook or Instagram Messenger, I guess on Instagram, it's more DMs. the more people that you message that you're not in regular contact with, the minute you get two-way communication from them, they will start seeing your posts again. Instagram tells you who's looking at your stuff, and it's almost always the same people. When you first make a friend, they see it for a little bit, but then if they start scrolling over it too fast, they wean themselves off of it. If you want all 1,000 friends on your social platform to see your stuff, you have to be in semi-regular two-way communication with those 1,000 people. So I tell people, like, when you go on Instagram, you're going to start with your stories at the top left, maybe scroll all the way to the right. Those are the people that you're not seeing their stuff very often. They're not seeing yours. Start there, because then the next day when you post about your new listing or when you post about your whatever persona, they're going to see it more at the top of their feed.
I'm furiously taking notes because there's so much good stuff.
Facebook works the same way, by the way. So Facebook and Instagram are the same company. But Facebook Messenger, although it used to be my number one favorite social marketing tool, Instagram DMs are now better, because when someone comments on a story, it ends up in Messenger. So you don't have to choose to send them like a message. You're just commenting on their story, and that counts as a message. So it's kind of like if a Facebook comment turned into a message. Messages have the highest algorithm juice, from what I've been told by colleagues at Facebook and Instagram.
That's fascinating. Well, and I'd say, just like as some real life example, I mean, when we started this podcast, one of the reasons I loved using audio messages through Instagram was because I was told when they saw my stuff. And the same is true from Facebook Messenger, right? If I send them a text or an email, I don't know when they read it. But if I sent them a Facebook message or I sent them an Instagram message, I knew exactly when they saw it. And so I could then reply appropriately. Maybe I wasn't getting a response, so I could approach them differently within the same app. To me, it was just a tool. And so I've told a lot of our agents, like, maybe switch it up from text messages to Messenger and start to understand more about who is actually looking and reading, seeing your stuff. What would you say about Facebook messages? And obviously there's different inboxes and whatnot. Some things get hidden. How do you make sure that your stuff is landing in people's inboxes? Are there any tips or tricks there?
I don't send a ton of like cold Facebook messages out, very rarely. So if they're friends with you, it's going to end up in their right inbox. And if you have like friends in common, like many friends in common, it will probably end up in the right inbox. But in general, you should be more concerned with making sure you don't miss messages as a realtor that end up in your other mailbox. Because if your Aunt Susie, who lives on the other side of the state, refers you someone who lives on your side, you might not have a lot of friends in common. If they message you out of the blue, it's going to end up in your spam inbox. And if you don't get back with them for 2 weeks, you may as well have lost the deal. So I tell people, like, if you want social to be one of your strategies, you need to be checking those other inboxes at least once or twice a week. And honestly, if you're listening to this and you're not huge on social, you should check it right now, because you might be surprised to see that you have a lead or two in there.
Yeah,
$100,000 just sitting in there.
I've been guilty of that before. 2 years later, I'm like, where did this person come from? Matt, talk to us a little bit about video, because I know that that's a big piece of social media, especially these days. What do you say to the real estate agent that says, you know what, I'm not really comfortable making videos. I don't love making videos. I don't know how to make videos. My backdrop, my voice, the way I look, the way I sound, what I say. What are some tips?
They go to therapy.
What are some tips you would give?
Well, I'll give you the short, cynical answer, and then I'll give you my real answer. So the cynical answer would be, I don't think anyone should do any marketing that they're not comfortable with, because it won't be good. Like, it's going to suck. That being said, there is a huge place for video, because you might suck. And the reason is that when you post a video and it's raw and it's real, your friends want to click on it to laugh at you and like see what's going on. Like, I know all of my buddies love to rib me when I like make a bad video or a good video. They don't really care. So if you haven't done a video ever, do one. You'll probably get good results on it. Facebook and Instagram both give you more algorithm juice for videos than they do for posts, right? So like, text is good, photos better, videos better. You'll get more out of it. I would say if you're not comfortable on it, keep it short. You know, we're not all professionally trained actors and actresses, but many of us could deliver 30 seconds, no problem. I would tell you, it doesn't need to be overly edited. I mean, if you're the luxury realtor and you're only selling $1 million houses, yeah, it probably does need to be overly edited, and it probably does need to be perfect. But if you're a good agent who's a community agent in a normal town where people like get it, you don't need to overthink it. It can be short and simple. And if the next problem people will say is, I just don't know what to say. Number one, do an intro video. Who you are, what you do, and who you serve. Easy one. Everyone should be able to do that. 30 seconds or less. Number two, for 1 week, keep your Remarkable tablet or your notepad or whatever sticky note you have and write down every single question that a buyer, seller, or friend asks you about real estate, and then do a video where you answer that question in a complete sentence. 30 seconds or less per video. You could pay a friend who knows how to hold the camera properly if you want to make it look good. Otherwise, have your wife do it on your iPhone. I've seen success both ways, but it's definitely worth a shot. And then you can reuse those videos on your website, on YouTube. I mean, the minute you make it, you need to reuse it in 10 different places so that you get the most for your time.
So I want to talk about taking all of these interactions on social media and making sure it ends up as database growth, right? Because a lot of these interactions can exist on these social platforms, but how do I get them into my database so that the two-way communications are not just happening on social media, but they're also getting captured into my funnel for my communication about real estate in other ways? Do you have any tips on making sure that we get names, phone numbers, emails, physical addresses back into our database once we're starting to interact with people on social?
So first one's the easiest one, and that's about 30% of people have some form of contact information in their profile. So not everyone, again, 30%, but I have 1,000 Facebook friends, so 30% is 300. They're going to have their email address, their phone number. Some will have their address. Some will have more information. Specifically, anyone you work with that's in sales is going to have some contact information in there. So that's the first place to start. If you are lucky enough to have an admin or have a teenager who wants money from you, this is a great project for them. They can scrub your list from A to Z, go to everyone's profile, pull their contact info into a spreadsheet, and then you can figure out what makes it into the CRM system. Second thing would be, I mean, you have to really think too, like your social media really is a different version of a database, right? It's kind of like your Rolodex, if a Rolodex had like more rich and detailed information and an algorithm that showed them all of your stuff. That's the second piece to consider. So I wouldn't necessarily worry if like you found someone that you didn't have their contact information. I think that goes to the point of like, hey, like, you know, we just talked about XYZ topic for 10 minutes on Instagram. Let's get there for coffee. Awesome. What's the best number I can text you at to set that up?
Right.
Like you can use it to get the information in a non super salesy way. And then I tell people like your first communication to them using the number they just gave you should not be spam. Like the first thing you send them should be real. And then like afterwards, like, you know, maybe a month later, let it ruminate, let them trust you. Then if you want to add them to your list and send out very targeted, segmented communication, that's okay.
I'm glad we're talking about database because one of the things that most agents strive for is this sort of business where they're getting repeat and referral business coming to them every month, and they're not having to go out there and hunt for every lead that they're going to close. And that obviously requires a high level of database communication, nurturing, and follow-up. What do you see, Matt, with agents sort of dropping the ball as it pertains to their past clients or people that they've worked with in the past? What should that sort of follow-up system look like so that they can build a business that is organically creating that repeat and referral business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it starts with a yearly plan of like, how many times per year are you going to hit them, right? Like we do 2 big customer events per year. We do a family event and more of a drinking-based like adult event. We get probably 30% of our 5,000 person CRM that comes to one of the two. That way we get face-to-face. Second one, we send out 5 mass emails per year. Now they're not like drip campaigns. They're like timely and specific emails, but they're mass emails. 3, we do at least 2 text messages a year. And then we try to hit 1 phone call per year. Now the topics for those, we try to every Monday recommend that people write down like a topic of the week. That way it's always fresh. So like this week, my topic of the week for anyone that I meet with is Monday was the lowest inventory the United States has ever seen. Therefore, Today is the best day ever to list your house.
Right.
Like that's the topic.
Timely, it's relevant, it matters.
It's timely. Next week, it might be about interest rates. The week after that, it could be about a local business in town that's opening that I want to tell everyone about because my other client's opening it. They don't all have to be real estate related. And when in doubt, and you have to pick up the phone and you don't know what to say, pull a market report on Zillow around or whatever Keller Williams app or other app about that person's address, and then just let them know the most recent 3 homes that sold in their neighborhood and what those values are. Everybody likes data about money. So that would be where I would start with your database. And at the very least, this is like, I want this to be like my crowning moment on this podcast. If I was the president of the United States, which doesn't pay nearly enough, and I probably think it's a headache, I would make it illegal against the law for a real estate agent to not send a yearly CMA to their clients that they've sold houses to. Financial advisors are legally required to send 4 quarterly estimates of your assets per year. But your real estate, like your house, is probably worth more than your 401k, especially since it's grown at 25% a year over the last couple of years. Why are realtors not doing this? I don't know. It's the number one marketing opportunity. It's the number one thing your clients want from you. And honestly, it should be the law. So if you haven't done a CMA and you're looking for like, hey, what should I be sending out? It should be a CMA, and it shouldn't just be from an automated system. It should be something semi-personal.
I love that. I love that. You know, so many of the agents that we coach, we're coaching them because they're out of balance right now in their buyers and listings. And I wanted to specifically ask you about marketing for listings. And you gave us a couple pieces of gold there. Any other thoughts, because the topic of the week is inventories at an all-time low, about how agents can get creative with marketing to their database for listings?
Yeah. So this, I mean, you know, you market to a buyer who owns a home. You're also kind of marketing towards listings. One way that I would market is I would look at your like past 20 closings if you're lucky enough to have like 2 or 3 years of past data. And I would think to yourself, this is going to sound crazy, but apply critical thinking to each one and think, did I sell them a house that they loved? Or did I sell them a house because it was tight inventory that kind of worked for them? And then I would choose a house that's currently on the market that you think is a better fit for them. And I would text them, call them, email them, whatever it is, and say, hey, I know you're not looking, but 2 years ago when you were looking, this is what you wanted, and it popped up today. Just thought you'd be interested to see what it looks like. I would say that for agents I work with, if they do that 10 times a week, they typically get one person who gets reinvigorated and is like, yeah, you're right. I want that. Because people always want something new. It's the shiny object. So if they're a current homeowner, you find them something better, you get 2 deals out of it. It's a double win situation.
I love that advice. So we've talked to you about social media. We've talked about database growth. When it comes to marketing for real estate agents, what are we leaving out? Like what are we forgetting that you would say, Matt, is just a win for realtors?
Huge win for realtors. I think realtors are more poised to give referrals to other industries than any other profession on the planet. And I would love for someone to challenge me on this, but I can't think of one. I mean, in a real estate transaction, a good realtor who's quarterbacking the sale is referring to a title company, a lender, a home inspector, an insurance agent, possibly, maybe a financial advisor afterwards, a stager, a roofer, a landscaper, a mover. I mean, like the list goes on. Maybe babysitters, maybe you're referring them to like a new circle of friends, for God's sake. So think about the value there. Like at the end of the year, if you had 20 sales, you could have made 80 referrals to other people just through the course of business. I think it's a huge mistake to not track those referrals that you give. The best agents track the referrals that they receive. The agents that are even better track the ones that they give as well. If you referred me 3 deals, I would want to, for sure, like I would want you to call me in 6 months and say, hey, Matt, how are those referrals that I sent you? And I'd be like, oh my God, David, those were fantastic. All 3 of those clients closed. They were amazing people to work with. I love referrals like that. And you'd be like, awesome. Well, I'm really glad you like it. I'm definitely going to continue to send more. Hey, could I just ask you for a favor? And I'd be like, absolutely, man, you've earned it. And you'd say, this is what I'm looking for. Would you be able to send me X, Y, or Z? I think it works in any industry, but I think for realtors specifically it works. And it doesn't just need to be a lead. And I want to be really clear on that. If you're You might be referring to someone who has a really small network, and they might not be able to refer you a client who can buy or sell real estate, but they might be able to refer you to a business you can partner with for your next client appreciation event. They might be able to partner you on giving you a great review online. They can do something for you. And if you track the referrals that you give, it makes that conversation a lot easier. Every one of your clients that you've ever worked with could use something from you, whether it's a referral, whether they're a teacher and they need school supplies, whether they are a part of a charity and they want a small donation. It's something you need to write down when you do it so that it gives you a conversation starter the next time you call them that's soft. If you're a realtor and you're calling me and you're saying, hey, just wanted to remind you, I'm Joe and I'm a realtor and I'd love your business, whatever, that's not impactful. But if you're calling me to be like, hey, I know a couple of weeks ago you emailed me about this charity thing. Are you still doing that? Like, I would love to make a donation. That's an easy conversation starter. And then I'm gonna be like, oh my gosh, thank you. What can I do for you?
I think that's great advice, and it actually made me think of, we have a really good friend, Brady Sandahl, who mega agent in Palm Springs. And one of the things they started doing when the virus hit and small business was suffering is they took that concept of tracking the referrals and the businesses that they were keeping in business by listing property and closing property, all these other industries, right? And they would send out their communication to their database, thanking the community for putting the community to work by using the Sandahl group. Does that make sense?
Yeah, love it.
And so a message of gratitude, which everyone wants to hear, track the referrals so you can list all the different industries. You employed this pool contractor on this one, the painter, and they would go right down through all the different industries that were kept in business because you were willing to send a referral to the Sandahl group. Thought it was absolutely brilliant. And how many agents could take their business to the next level doing something like that? Matt, you've given us some great advice. I want to transition us into the last segment of our show, which is 3, 2, 1 action. It's the same 3 questions we ask every guest. Okay. You ready to be on the hot seat, man?
I'm ready, man.
All right. Question number 1.
Who is the one person who's had the biggest impact on your business and why?
Yeah. So the number 1 person is my mentor. His name's Kevin Polakovich. He's a top real estate and mortgage coach in the country. I've known him for 10 years. He taught me the fundamentals of real estate investing, but he really taught me the psychology of understanding buyers, sellers, realtors, and other real estate professionals. I think trying to figure out how to understand someone's psychology within 30 seconds on the phone with them is going to help you sell to them better. And it's just something I've taken away.
Very cool. Question number 2, what book has been the most influential on your business and why?
That is a great question. I'm going to give a really off the wall answer here. I got really into reading books about World War II and the Holocaust a couple years ago. And the thing that they really taught me is they taught me to appreciate life a little bit more. And they taught me to realize that no matter what weird thing and stressful thing is going on in my day, it's not a bad day. I have busy days, but I don't have bad days. And I think reading some of those books was really influential in helping me change my mindset. So if I had to name one book, I would say The Tattooist of Auschwitz was an awesome book. It'll make you cry, but it'll make you appreciate your life a little bit more.
I can't say I've read that one.
Some great perspective though.
Yeah.
And that's definitely a different answer. So
that's different, and I absolutely love it. Yeah.
All right, Matt, third and final question is, this is the All In Podcast where we encourage our listeners to take what they've heard here today and then go put it into action. So what's one thing that you would recommend all of our listeners go do right now today to begin improving the marketing of their business on social media?
So on social media specifically, I would come up with 10 or 12 questions that you genuinely want to know the answers to. And I would post one a week for the next 12 weeks. People love answering questions on social media. They always get engagement. If you post online, hey, looking to take my wife out, what's the best burger spot in XYZ city? You are going to get 35 responses. Your homework is to engage and send a message to everybody who responds and to start a conversation. That conversation will likely eventually lead to how are you doing? And that's when you can subtly mention real estate or try to get a meeting with them. It's an easy one. You'll get 100 messages and conversations within a week.
And the reason I love it is because it's not just making the post. It's then saying, okay, I'm going to intentionally DM and create a conversation with every person that responded. And that's a big important point, obviously, in this process.
Two-way conversation. Matt, awesome. Really good stuff. I know our audience is going to want to find out more about you. Where's the best place for them to find more of your content and to connect with you?
Yeah, so if you go to my website, it's mattmuscat.com, mattmuscat.com. From there, you can find a link to my book on Amazon, the Tangible Action Guide for Real Estate Agents. Every page is like 2 chapters, so it's super doable in between all of your $1 million listings. You can also check out our podcast, which is the Marketing and Other Markets podcast. We're nowhere near as cool as this one, but we're on our way up.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for investing time with our audience. We'll link that all up in the show notes, guys. And Matt, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Had a lot of fun, and look forward to drinking some wine with you here in Scottsdale next time you're in town.
We can't wait, guys. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Guys, this has been another episode of the All In Podcast. As always, go play All In.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to this episode of the All In Podcast. We want to invite you to find all of today's resources from our show page at aipodcast.co. We also ask that you take just 1 minute to leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. This is how we grow and how we're able to bring you the best content each and every week. Now go play all in.